Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of School Trustees business meeting to order. It's Tuesday, September 13th, 2022. We're here at the Administration Building at 6:30. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are very fortunate tonight to be able to have a presentation about the wonderful Whitewater Career Center. Woohoo!
Let's see how good it is.
And we're gonna have a song and dance too.
We'll be no singing, we're dancing. So, and I apologize about the jacket, but Mr. Drew's done such a good job of the operations that my office is freezing to death and I feel like an ice cube and I'm still cold, so he's done a great job. I'd like to thank you all for having me, Mr. Collins, Cabinet, and school board members, for letting us come and share some of our highlights, some things we're doing currently, some things we're changing, some things we're going to work on, some growth points, and just some overall exciting things that we have to offer for students in Fayette County and some counties around us. So here we go. This year, we try to theme things every year in our building, and our theme this year is to reach out. With COVID, the last 2 years have been difficult to reach out because you really weren't supposed to have contact. People were a little bit more shut off. So what we're doing this year is we're going to reach out to students, staff, parents, community, other school districts, industry partners, you name it. We're going to try to get our names out there. I personally believe a point of contact solves most problems. My first thing when we have issues with students that we ask teachers, have you talked to the parent? And a lot of times parents, believe it or not, they don't get enough credit because they still will handle a lot of issues for you. So they are still big advocates. So people don't give parents enough credit. I think parents don't get enough credit at times too for that. So that's nice. So as we move forward, we have 13 programs. The only thing that's different from the last time we presented is we've pulled our computer technology and IT program back. We're looking at different program expansions in the future. We look at flame ratings, industry standards, what's out there in our areas that's important. So of those 13 programs, we still have our auto collision technology program, automotive technology, construction technology, cosmetology. One of our new programs that's been a huge success is criminal justice. I know a couple of board members would really like to hear that. Dennis, that's right up your alley, right? Chris? Mr. Cloyd. Mr. Cloyd's done a fantastic job. Our hopes when we started that program was to start with a half-day program for 1 year with a minimum of, I think it was 20 students. Does that sound right? Yeah. First year enrollment was 57 kids. So and it's in our top 3 highest attendance still right now. Okay. Culinary arts, great program. Stop by Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays if you want a great lunch at a great price. $5 for a tenderloin fish sandwich, cheeseburger, fries, all that good stuff. I know Randy, he sleeps a lot of afternoons because he gets lunch on Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays. So that's great. Daryl stops by frequently. It's all food prepped and served by our students. They have desserts, all kinds of great stuff. It's a good atmosphere. Most of our teachers eat there those days, and it's just a good experience for the kids. We have diesel technology. We also have Ed Careers, which finally has an enrollment boom. That's probably the most impressive thing for this year for me. Is we got a lot of kids going in and out in our corporation that are going to schools. We've got kids in area schools. And our enrollment's finally up because we all know what the teaching profession is, right? Everybody thinks everybody can do it, and now everybody's running from it, and we need more quality people going into their education.
How many people are in that now, Steve?
I would say right around 32, something like that.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
And most of the enrollment's in year 1, which is good, which means we'll have a good carryover for year 2. So hopefully,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. We have electricity, graphic design, which graphic design's products, what you're seeing on the board. I don't do these nice PowerPoints. I'm very not talented. So Kyle does these for us. So health science, precision machine technology, and welding technology. Welding is always booming. 24 full welding booths, packed. It's capacity every year. Anything from CNC plasma cams to welding simulators to different types of MIG, TIG, art, flux core, all kinds of stuff. So impressive program if you've never been able to see that. Participating schools have not changed. Western Wayne, which would be Lincoln High School, Centerville, Union County, Rush County, Franklin County, and of course Connersville and Fayette County. So our participation from those schools is very good. Our relationship with those schools, I can say, is very strong. And that's probably my biggest victory as far as a personal goal when I started here, was mending fences and let them know that this is a place for all of their kids and not just for kids of a certain corporation. And we've been very successful with that, and I will say this, and I'm not just buttering him up, Mr. Collins has been a big factor in that, and seeing that what's good for those students is good for our students and vice versa. So that's very, very commendable of them. So that's been very helpful. Enrollment trend. When this was printed and put up there, 627 students. As of today, it was 620. You know what Friday is? Does anybody know?
Yes.
Kim, what is it?
No, I have no idea.
Count day. So typically we lose some kids count day week from other schools where they're starting to pull kids out who haven't shown up for funding purposes. So we'll probably end around a 615 to 617 mark, which, if you look at enrollment data, that's very good. Our cohort continues to shrink, and I mean dramatically, year in, year out. If you look, Centerville grew about 30 students last year, I think, total in the district. Franklin County somehow grew, which was a rarity, and everybody else lost students. So we're continuing to have fewer students, but we're pulling more, so our percentage is up. So that's pretty impressive growth. Mrs. Jones, Mr. Davis, and our teachers work really hard on recruiting. So that's very nice. You have a one-page flyer that's sitting in front of you that looks like this. This is a program highlight sheet. When we present to places and we have these things to hand out to parents, this gives a lot of accomplishments from years past. Typically runs on 21-22 data. This year it would be 22-23 going into next year. A lot of impressive stuff on here. Too much stuff to probably process. We have school-based enterprise, which means we're actually running money through programs, and the majority of our programs. We generated $54,000 in revenue last year in our building, which is students doing work from haircuts to catering events to working on cars to welding, auto collision projects, diesel projects, things like that, where patrons bring in vehicles or bring in themselves to get their hair done or whatever. And that's been very, very successful. It teaches students a sense of business. It also teaches them a sense of pride and quality. Students need to know when you work on something that that needs to be done right. Sometimes things don't get done right. What happens? They come back and you have to fix those, and those are good learning lessons as well. We have 2 dual credit partners through Ivy Tech and Vincennes University. Everybody is through Ivy Tech, with the exception of graphic design is through nobody. We can't get dual credit there. Vincennes is criminal justice, diesel technology, cosmetology, and auto collision. All the other students, or all the other programs, students are through Ivy Tech, which is a big thing right now because the knowledge assessment is due, I believe, today, actually, or no, actually tomorrow I think it is. So for Ivy Tech, so I'm sure the high school is working on that as well. Last year we gave 3,566 dual credits. That's a lot of dual credit. Something that's very impressive about that, we give more dual credits than any other institution in the region. So that's a pretty impressive thing. And our students typically use these in some capacity, whether it's internships through precision machining, whether it's apprenticeships through the linemen's organizations and unions, electricians going into unions, carpenters. It becomes a very good thing. Students are using it to become nurses, better CNAs. So that's very nice. We also, let's see here, certificate and completers. Last year, and as we move forward here, we can look at the 4, these are our certification programs, excuse me. So, these programs, these students actually get a certificate and graduate and participate with Ivy Tech in May. Some regions do not allow their high school students to graduate with their Ivy Tech campuses, believe it or not, but Richmond always does, and that's very nice. Last year we had 62 graduates from the Career Center alone for Ivy Tech. Now, not all those students participated in graduation, but they received their certification and could have. So that's a very impressive thing. We are also, in a big year, seeking our re-endorsement from SEL for our early college learning, or early career center, early college career center, that's hard to say. That is gonna be a big undertaking. When we did our endorsement initially, it was literally, I think, about a week and a half or two before COVID hit the first time, and it kinda, I think, Scott, you probably remember that. So that was one of the real last things that we did before that happened. So we're up for recertification and re-endorsement through them, which I feel very confident about. Mrs. Jones does a phenomenal job with that. She's impressive when it comes to anything dual credit and student related like that. So that should happen starting in the fall, continue into the spring. We are one of 7 career centers in the state that has that endorsement right now, and we were the 5th to ever accomplish that. There's our graduates, I should say some of our graduates. Thankfully, they behaved themselves well at graduation. So I'm not sure if I was a high school, college graduate, I would have behaved very well. I'd have thrown my cap or done something weird. So, but they were great. We have a graduate from every school in our region, which is nice. We're well represented, not just for Fayette County, but for all of our 6 sending schools and corporations we represent. Let's see here. Our marketing is huge. These are one-page marketing sheets that students get, parents can access, so that they can see what they get. It tells you who your dual credit partners are, what you can get if you qualify. It tells you your pathways through Connersville High School and how it applies to the Career Center. And you can see English, communications, math, biology, and how it all relates to the end up, ultimately, hopefully the Ivy Tech graduation, which then should go to a stackable credential for a 4-year bachelor's degree. That's what our goals are. Not everybody will go to college, that's fine. They're probably the smart ones right now if you look at what people are making in industry. They're doing very well. Jeremy, I think your Houghton people are doing very well considering the times, which is awesome. And I'm proud to be there and teach a blue collar mentality, hard work, dirty hands, show up to work, and things will be good for you, okay? There's law enforcement flyer. That is not somebody actually getting arrested in our building. Okay, we would not take pictures of that. I'm sure if it was me getting arrested, everybody would take pictures of that. So they do a lot of awesome stuff in there. They're working on forensics. There were some things we had in place prior to COVID that I'd like to get back to. And I've mentioned this before, we'd like to explore possibly putting in like a body farm, so we can do forensic analysis of decomposition of.
We can help you with that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've actually talked to Scott about this, fencing an area, do some things like that, work with.
Clarify the body form.
Yes, not real bodies, we're talking about possible cadavers for like pigs, how the pig breaks down. We have some other career centers around the state that are doing those. It's really cool. And they do science exploration. Chris?
The enrollment from last year to this year, did it go up as far as the?
It's actually stable because we cut enrollment off. So we cap it. Yeah, so it's stable, yeah.
Which is, I call it a positive disconnect, because law enforcement just suffering tremendously to get people to enroll. I was telling Dennis, our academy is down to 14 cadets. That's unheard of for the Indiana State Police.
Wow.
So there must be at least the high school, the group that's coming up, seems to have more enthusiasm than what's
Well, I think
existing right now.
it's very similar to education.
Okay.
Yeah, in the context of what they hear and what they see on TV.
Right.
And I think that happens, that's a portion of it. Our job's to let people know that you're not out there to be, the guy that's catching the bad guy all the time. You're a public servant to do positive for your communities and things like that. And Jason does a great example, or gives great examples, does a good job of selling that to our students. What's shocking is a lot of those students have no aspirations to be a police officer.
Really?
They want to be attorneys.
Boo.
They want to be in forensics.
The enemy.
Some are very interested in cybersecurity.
That's a
In
good-
that aspect. Some of them are interested in being conservation officers. Some of them are interested in being reporters and journalists.
Wow.
Okay.
So there's a lot of variations inside of that. So
Interesting.
it's an interesting dynamic when you see those individuals and how differing they are. When you go to diesel, you're gonna see diesel kids.
Yeah.
They like to be dirty, they like to be greasy, and they like to work on stuff. But you get a very big, you have a lot of females, a lot of males. There's a good blend. It's probably close to 50-50 if I was guessing, male, female, which is kind of unique in our programs. So.
Thank you.
So reaching out, checking in with students, that's a big thing. I talked to Mrs. Casaro last week. I took all D's and F's at the end of the previous week, and I called every one of them into the office and talked to them about their grades, what they need to do, what we need to do to support them, and how we can be better serving for them. Most of those students will tell you, hey, I was out because I was sick, or so they're on the radar and they know that we're there to help them. It wasn't a punishment, but they're there to know that they have support. And I've checked in on a few of them since, and their grades have increased, so that's good. So we're reaching out there. We're also helping each other. I've said this in admin meetings with our team. If we're not there for each other, we got big problems. So we're checking in on our fellow teachers, our fellow secretaries, our colleagues, and making sure everybody's okay. It's been a tough 2.5 years for people here. So utilize the Remind app. We're communicating constantly through Remind app with our students. Implement School Messenger. That's a topic at the high school. We've been successful in that. It calls all of our unexcused and true and absences every day, twice a day, and tells moms and dads students aren't at school automatically. And you'd be surprised how many kids quit skipping school. So it's been very effective. It's helped our attendance a lot. Using Google Classroom to make sure students have something in front of them on weather delays. We have a lot of 2-hour delay issues with our sending schools. That's tough. So when we do that, the morning kids can still get some value out of what we're doing. Continuing our online application and enrollment process that lets counselors have an online application that they can work on with the students, so it doesn't have to be snail mail and can be real time. It keeps accurate tabs on who has enrolled and who's going to enroll, what our programs are enrolled, and what our capacities are. Build larger social media presence. If anything, the high school has had a massive increase in social media this year. And I'm not a social media guy, but I know all about it because of my kids. We need to keep doing that as well. Spotlight students, what are they doing, so their schools can see. It's advertisement. The best advertisement for us is word of mouth and positive experience. And it's typically from student to student. But the worst advertisement is negative and student to student. So we got to make sure that we're showing those positives. Expand our advisory committees. We're always looking for industry partners to come in and help tell us what the industry really is. The automotive collision industry is not what it was in 1965. So we have to have individuals who are in that industry be on these committees so they can tell us what we need to do moving forward. Work with post-secondary schools. We work with Ivy Tech. We work with Vincennes. We've had some communications with Cincinnati State in the past. Nothing real concrete, but we also have Northwest Ohio, Holbrook Welding Institute in Troy, Ohio, Lincoln Tech, Wyotech in Wyoming. So we have a lot of influence with those schools, and they come in, they advertise their services. UTI, Universal Training Institute, which Centerville actually sent a student down who's in marine mechanics school there right now. So we have a lot of avenues we're going across the country, not just here. Recruit more work-based learning partners. We've got 77 partners, if you'll notice on that sheet. That goes from NTAT, NSK, there's a machine shop in Franklin County, slipping my Woodmiser in Batesville. We have Dot Food, Sugar Creek. There's all CIT in Richmond. There's all kinds of places in our region. That is difficult at times because there's a lot of communication and a lot of things that are going on daily to do that. So we have avenues we're going to look to explore there to maybe be a little more efficient in that. But we also encourage industries to reach out to us. This gentleman behind me, who's a Superior Chemical, is interested in coming and looking around. I didn't know he existed, and he didn't know I existed until tonight. So those are the type of partnerships we need, and that word of mouth, and that's hard when you have a huge area that you serve. Indianapolis, it's easy. You just go down the street and there's 55 companies. It's not like that here. Expand interview days. Mr. Collins participated in mock interviews. We actually interview every student in our building before they leave. I know Howden sent 6 or 7 individuals up here to do interviews. We've had students get offered $15 to $20 an hour jobs on the spot. We've had students that have learned they're not hireable. And all of that is valuable. And Mr. Collins will tell you, we have some young ladies who interviewed with him for teaching.
Their names and
Yes.
contact info.
So we're working
Keep an
on
eye
it.
on, you know.
Seek more financial partners and grants. That's hard, but we always like more money. We do not qualify as a rural school by definition, by the state of Indiana, and the federal government, which is just, Richmond does, but we don't.
What?
We're not gonna talk about that in a public forum. So, if you'd like more information, I can tell you after the meeting.
That's,
Yeah, that's true.
Come
So-
meet with you at the restaurant on Friday and you can share.
Yeah, I'll share why. So that cheats us out of a $100,000 opportunity a year. It's a big deal.
Richmond is rural and we're not?
They sure are, so, by the federal definition, so. Plan for the next 5 years. We don't have formal plans out there, but we have strategic plans in place. Program adoption is one thing I'm looking at. And I think Mr. Collins would allude to, our other 5 superintendents are on board with that. They see the growth, they see the value, and they want us to look and see what's out there. So those are some things we're looking at. How can we maximize the staff we have, better serve students? What equipment do we need moving forward? We are now proud owners of a police car. Pretty pumped about this. We got that free from C4, which is Career Center in Columbus, Indiana. So needs a power steering pump. Once we get that fixed, we got an auto tech program to do that. We'll have a police car that Mr. Coy can train on. We may want to drive to some, admin meetings occasionally with some lights on, set it on fire, so. But you gotta have fun, and that's what we encourage our kids. If you do 2 things, if you come to school to learn, and if you're good to each other, you're gonna have a lot of success, and that's what we preach. And if kids learn to be kind to each other and be kind to themselves, they'll have compassion and respect, and they'll have a good, successful experience at the Career Center, and that's what we constantly preach to our students. We've had one community event already. I don't know if any of you were there. Farm to Table event. Mrs. Jacobs, how was
It
it?
was good.
I believe
The
they did
kids
dessert.
a fabulous
Did desserts,
job.
correct?
The dessert was
The
delicious.
cheese was the best though.
Of
The
course
cheese?
it was, but,
Okay.
but the dessert, and the kids were great, they didn't really miss a beat. I thought that might be the one cod, because I don't know if they practiced. And it was, but they were, everybody got served and a good time on it. They did a great job.
Good. Glad to hear that. Mrs. Davis does a very, very nice job
Yeah.
with those students. And that was for, that was a chamber. Was that a chamber event or was that?
This is the mayor's event.
Yeah, mayor's event, that's right. Mayor Frank. So for some reason, this isn't going forward. Okay, we also have a YouTube channel. This is not interactive. If you're gonna be on YouTube, do something constructive and come look at our page. We've got a lot of videos on there. We have student interviews, we do student spotlights. We have our recruitment videos that are generated to help recruit. We recruit all the way down to elementary students. So we have clip art videos for them. We have adult-oriented videos where students are interviewed and they talk about their experiences at the Career Center and show what they're actually doing. So we try to hit all avenues in all areas. And it's a great channel. We also have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I don't know what else we have. I'm not that guy. Just they ask me if they can do it and I say make sure it's proper and done well, and it's all that matters. And we get a lot of followings there, so that's very exciting. And this is our final slide, which is just our contact information. As you can see, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and then our World Wide Web. If you look for us on YouTube, it is just Whitewater Career Center is all you have to search, and it'll pull up our page. That's really about it. Any questions?
Who's doing the education class?
That is Rachel Hartsock. So she's been an elementary teacher. I think this is about her 20th year as an educator, but she's been with us for, I want to say she's been there this is her 8th year, pretty sure.
I think it was my first year back, she started the same time I did.
Yeah, we had a leave of absence, and Jackie Barraclough actually held the fort down for the remainder of my first year, and then we hired Rachel for the second, so this would be her 8th year. And Jackie did a great job with that too. Who's just now Franklin County's Teacher of the Year.
Yeah,
So,
she was.
ironically. And was my babysitter. There you go, there's
Your personal baby.
my personal babysitter when I was like little, yeah, so. Kinda ironic. So-
Steve, you're a great ambassador for this program. I think that enrollment, I think you do a great job to keep enrollment up, but nationwide, there's been a push for career and technical education, and I think that's really helped in some ways to get kids to be thinking, oh, there's more options for me. But
Yeah, I think the most challenging thing for us is the funding component for us is always secondary to the gen ed school. And yes, we are gen ed, because we represent general education students, secondary. However, the money typically gravitates
Yeah.
in a different direction in Indiana than just, and they've increased that over the years. If you go to many of your foreign countries, like Germany, 75% funded by private sector for education. Well, you can bet that they're going to build career education because they're the ones funding it, and what are they doing? They're creating jobs and workers for their employment opportunities.
So these partners that you mentioned, are they partners in the sense that they are willing to have kids, the possible jobs for kids when they come out?
Well, I think there's a lot of different answers to that.
Okay.
They serve our students as far as prospective employers.
Mm-hmm.
They also serve our students as people who provide materials for students to learn with.
Okay,
We get tens of thousands of dollars in scrap steel donated every year from several different companies.
okay, yeah.
Some of them give scholarships to students. Rick Beaver has a company that they buy 2 precision machining-based toolboxes for 2 of the outstanding students in his program. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's some people it's monetarily, some people it's support, some people it's advisory committees.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different things that are out there in ways they partner with us.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with how the Career Center has morphed and has kept up with things. We've removed programs that are just not in the forefront now, and been able to integrate the new programs and encourage people to do those. Because they said jobs are obsolete in a very short period of time, and you've been had foresight enough not to be training kids for jobs that aren't gonna be there when they need them.
That was one of the we've had a lot of people ask about fire and rescue and why we don't offer that where Richmond does. Well, one, Richmond has a fire department that gives them everything they want. It's practically free. Not that Connersville would not support that, that's not what I'm implying.
No.
But there are 81, when we looked at that, the data the last time, there were 81 paid fire professionals in our region at that time, from Rushville to Centerville to Western Wayne to Union County, Franklin County. So when you look at that, you have to look at your return on investment. Are we preparing future volunteer firemen? Or are we preparing people for the career of being a firefighter? And I think the thing that the state wants to see is they want to see, is it valuable and is it viable for the student, where the state won't fund it. So it's now when you get to your metropolitan areas, there's a lot more avenues for those students to go, whether it's EMS and the things like that. So yeah, you have to look at what the state's telling you job-wise. That's huge.
Steve, I hear nothing but good about what's going on at the vocational school or the career center. And I think a lot of that is due to your leadership. As to Leslie's comment, I think we have to recognize we made a terrible mistake for 10 or 20 years telling everybody they had to go to college.
Right.
I just regret that I was part of that. And I think we're turning the corner on that. I'm on the breakfast circuit about every morning at 6 o'clock. I talk to contractors, plumbers, electricians, bricklayers. If we could just get an apprentice, if we could just get somebody to come and give us a chance and teach them a great vocation, they're going to make a great living. I don't know how we get that integrated into the Career Center, but there's a bunch of people right here in Connersville that would love to have students as apprentices to take their job. So,
Well, I think you said one thing that's wrong. I haven't done anything. I've had a group of people that's done a lot. And that comes from counselors, that comes from my, people that are colleagues. They're not my employees, they're my colleagues. They carry equal amount of weight in our building. Everybody from a custodian to an instructional aide to our secretaries. Brenda Dillon's was the support staff person of the year last year. In my opinion, she was the support staff person of the millennium and still is. So if we could just take a marker and change that year to year, which there's plenty of deserving people, but yeah, my leadership isn't as good without the people underneath me. And those people have entrusted their faith in me, and I've entrusted my faith in them, and it's a great relationship, and that's why it's successful. And we've had great support from our boards, from our superintendents and principals and everyone. But you got to change that culture. You're asking about why we aren't having this happen. We have to change the culture. It's okay to get dirty when you go to work. And that's what I grew up in, and that's why I'm passionate about it. My dad's a plumber. He'll die a plumber, but he'll never tell you any different than work hard, be good to each other, be honest, and a lot of times that's what it takes. And I believe that.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
all
the
you do.
opportunity. Mr. Harris, make me look bad.
All right, we will now go on to approve the agenda. I'd like to seek a motion to approve it as submitted and amended.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Jeremy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comments on agenda items, seeing none. We will move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from regular business meeting of 8/9/22, the SEA 390 public hearing 8/18/22, and public work session of 8/25/22, the personnel report, retirements, resignations, leaves of absence, etc., the approval of August 2022 claims number 62744 to 62982, and a donation of $1,825 from the Fayette County Foundation to CHS to be used for SEL supports. So in seeing the consent agenda, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Dennis, second?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lori. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to move on to action items, beginning with the personnel report. Mr. Harris.
Okay, starting with the personnel report, and I'm going to go through it, hopefully get approval, then I'd like to make an introduction at the end of all of that. Recommendations for employment, administrative staff, recommending Trent Liggett as the interim principal at Connersville High School, beginning tomorrow. Certified staff, recommendation for Abigail Friend, elementary teacher at Frazee. Jeff Martin as social studies teacher at the middle school. Moving to classified staff, recommendations for Crystal Adams as Title I assistant at Everton, Caitlin Buchanan as a permanent substitute at Frazee, Shannon Clark as the Head Start nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan, Michelle Collier, same position, Head Start nutrition bus assistant Little Spartan, Zachary Cox as permanent substitute at the middle school, Marilyn Day as life skills assistant at Eastview, Leslie Garrett as a permanent substitute at Fayette Central, Holly Madden as special education assistant at the middle school, Addison Tuttle as special education assistant at Fayette Central, Luke Weiler as mechanic in transportation, Kaylee York as Title I education assistant at Frazee. Then moving to extracurricular recommendations under certified staff, Jason Cloyd, assistant varsity baseball coach, Michael Lathery as assistant athletic director, and then extracurricular under classified staff, Noah Barnes as freshman football coach, Steve DeGroat as the varsity wrestling coach, Tom Gettinger as assistant wrestling coach, and John Lemon as assistant wrestling coach. I guess make it clear, Tom Gettinger's at the middle school and the other two wrestling coaches would be at the high school. So those are the recommendations from the personnel report.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the personnel report.
I so move.
Ann, and a second? Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, then, and you go ahead and start moving towards the podium, Mr. Liggett. But it's my pleasure to officially introduce a seasoned administrator who does not need much introduction in our school district. But Trent Liggett began his employment at Fayette County Schools in July of 2008 as the middle school assistant principal athletic director. During his first 11 years, Trent served as an administrator at the middle school. Then he moved to the high school during the summer of 2019. Since that time at the high school, he served as assistant athletic director, assistant principal, also the district safety coordinator. Trent has both of his bachelor's, or he received both his bachelor's and master's degree from Ball State University. And prior to his tenure in Fayette County, he served as an assistant principal in the Delaware Community School Corporation and as a teacher in Centerville and Richmond. Trent has been a great asset to Fayette County Schools during the last 14-plus years. We're excited about the opportunity for him to serve as the interim principal at Connersville High School this year. So Trent, congratulations, and I know you might have some introductions, also some guests.
I do.
The podium is yours.
Appreciate kind words. I didn't know I did all that, but
You really are seasoned.
Superintendent Collins, Cabinet, School Board of Trustees. I brought with me part of my why, which is usually sleeping in bed when I'm out at school, but my wife Cheryl, and then my one and only granddaughter, which happened to be here these days, so she's with us. So that's part of my why, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my wife Cheryl. So, and matter of fact, I wouldn't even considered applying for this position if it wasn't for Cheryl backing me 110%. So my why is basically the kids and the staff within Fayette County Schools. It's not necessarily the high school, but the determining factor as why I wanted to be here at this time was the staff. The staff at the high school, we have some excellent teachers. And my job as a leader is to utilize those assets for the best of the kids. Because there's some really high, potent, quality teachers, and we just need to push them a little bit in the right direction. And there's also some teachers that need some direction. And I hope my rapport with the faculty and the staff goes a long way in achieving our goals. But I hate following an excellent speaker, Steve Duncan, there, because he said it all. It's not about the leader, it's all about the teachers and the kids. And every decision that I'll make with input from you guys, hopefully is based on what is best for the kids. And those determining factors in all decision making, as you know, may not make everyone happy, but feel assured that these decisions that I will make will be in the best interest of the kids. But I appreciate your support, and if you ever need to look me up, you know where I work. Thank you very much.
Trent, I think you misspoke. I think you have a princess with you.
Caring about kids and trying to get stuff done and trying to do what's in the best interest of kids. So when I saw on the thing today that he had agreed to take over this interim position, I let out a whoop. And I was not exactly in a place where that should have happened. It was just really, really good. I consider him a friend, but I can also consider him a very valuable educator. And he is going to do a fantastic job for the kids. He did a fantastic job for the kids at the middle school, who are difficult to deal with, and he'll do a fantastic job at the high school. And by the way, he likes soup, so anybody that the Career Center, if they make up a nice hot pot of soup, and you want to keep the guy on the other side of the parking lot happy, send him over some.
Well, he can tell one of his teachers to tell his wife to make it, because Mr. Davis's wife is our culinary teacher, so you can give a directive to him.
Pass it along.
I don't tell my wife. Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
All right, now we're going to move on. Recommendation for bus purchase, Mr. Harris.
This is a little bit unusual. I don't know that I've done it in the past, but I'm asking permission to purchase buses out of 2023 funds because of a couple of things. Number one, we've been notified that they anticipate a pretty hefty price increase on buses, as well as the fact that the lead time is somewhere around 14 to 16 months. So even though we would let them know we want to purchase the buses today, we're not going to get them until the latter part of next year. But I'm seeking, keeping in line with what we have done, purchase of buses and models and those things. I'm requesting to purchase Thomas-built school buses from Curlin Bus Sales and Leasing in the following quantities: 2 66-passenger buses, one 36-passenger bus with a lift, another large bus. This would be the second 84-passenger bus in our fleet, and purchase one activity school bus. The total of the purchases, we actually think it will be a little lower than this, but it will not exceed $664,421. So we're still waiting on trade-in prices and some of that to bring it down a little more.
So we have a 5-year plan basically for bus purchases, but because of,
We actually have a 12-year plan, but you are now required, the law changed, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. So there's really a 12-year plan that we work off of, but we have our bus replacement plan, you see 5 years of
yeah, it
that.
used to be 5 years. So basically, because of supply chain issues and prices, we're going ahead of this a little ahead of time to save us some money, and we'll probably get them delivered at the same time anyway.
Later.
Even
Or
later.
even a little
We're
later.
hoping to get them in November or December
Yeah.
of 2023. Normally, we would have ordered these in the winter, like February,
Right.
March of 23, and we would get them by August. So that shows how far we're back.
Yeah, usually it was 5 to 6 months, and now it's more than double that.
All right, thank you, Randy. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the recommendation for bus purchase.
I do that motion.
Thank you, Jeremy. Second? Thank you, Chris. Any discussion?
Just glad we're being proactive.
I know.
You guys are going to save us some money.
Daryl, did you get an idea of how much more they're gonna, was it like 20%?
He thought they were gonna go, each bus would go up 10 to 15,000, and the 84 passenger that we're looking at could go up 20 to 25.
So I know, I have a question on that. I know that Scott shared with us that as you worked tremendously hard to consolidate these routes and with the distance we're taking kids, that we're using a bigger bus, right? You shared with us.
We're
We
using
bought
one
that
now.
84 passenger in 2018, and I think it was supposed to be more of an athletic trip, bus and everything
Right.
else, but we now are using it in an office park and picking up 69 kids on that bus right now. So we couldn't do it with a regular bus, and we are short of drivers, so it's helped that. So the thinking is this new one we're ordering, we may be able to put out in the Everton area and pick up a bunch of kids,
Okay.
is what we're looking at. So trying to utilize it.
Okay, that's what I wondered if that was part of the,
It's working out right now.
Yeah.
We're making 4 stops at Office Park, so it's
Yeah.
really working out, so. And then our activity buses, I just told Scott, we got 22 of them going out this week, so I mean, we gotta keep the activity buses, the coaches are driving. So it's working.
okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, school improvement plan, Ms. Portaro.
Okay, in your packets, you were provided with the executive summaries for all of the schools. Each year, the DOE requires us to review and submit goals for each school. It has been tricky in the last several years with COVID and the lack of consistent data that we've had. We had a year where we didn't test because of COVID. The high school has moved from ISEP to SATs, so we do our best to review these. Our main goal is to try to stay at or above state average. We were told by the state not to compare iLearn scores because of COVID, so we're using our current iLearn scores as kind of like a baseline and hoping that this year, knock on wood, is a normal school year. We have no closures, and we can start really getting back to some of our strategic planning. It's very difficult when you have to change the way you're delivering instruction, the number of kids that were absent. So we have a lot of learning loss to kind of recover from, but this just gives you an idea of what each school is aiming for and some of the strategies that they have in place. We will continue to use NWEA as our kind of progress monitoring for kids who need additional support. And most of the elementary schools are working towards either getting to state average or above. And then the high school, this year, we will do PSAT in 9th grade to get a data point for them, because SATs are now the required assessment for high school. So we're making that change as well. So these will be approved, and then they'll be sent to the state for their approval as well.
Is this the first year they're doing an SAT?
Last year was the
Last year was
first
the
year,
first
yeah.
year, okay.
So they're changing that over. We still do like into ECAs and biology, but we are requiring them to take SATs. Our 10th graders have taken PSAT in the past.
Right.
This year, just to kind of help our kids be better prepared, we are paying an additional amount for our freshmen to also take it. Also gives us another data point, so we can see how they are performing as freshmen, so that we can put in some support systems for them, so that as they get to juniors and seniors and take it, that hopefully those scores will go up.
Do they take it, then freshmen and sophomores take the PSAT?
They will this year.
They will.
They aren't required to. Most schools just assess their 10th graders.
Okay.
You have to pay additional and provide
Okay.
a testing space for your freshmen, but we have chosen, in talking to high school administrators and teachers, they really want to give those freshmen an opportunity to tackle that test, that PSAT, because it's such a test that prepares them for that SAT later on.
And I don't mean to just focus on that, but I guess I
No, it's
didn't pay
okay.
attention last year.
That's newer
Yeah.
in terms of iLearn we've
Yeah.
had for a couple of years. We're hoping iLearn doesn't change. That's another difficult thing when you do any kind of continuous growth or strategic planning. The test or the standards change, and then it's hard to get that baseline and hard to improve that. So it makes these a little difficult when you are trying to revise them, because sometimes the targets move.
Right, so students that are going to take the SAT for college entrance, do they still have to sign up for that SAT, or can they, the separate one the kids used to always have to do on a Saturday, or does this test count?
Well, I think you can still take the SAT multiple times.
Yeah.
And most of those kids that are looking for a certain score will take it,
Right,
right? This
right.
will be a baseline for them. And there's still, I'm assuming some kids that are taking the ACT as well.
Yeah.
So I just need approval for school improvement plans.
I'd like to seek a motion to approve the school improvement plans.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lori.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The approval of the Hall of Fame 2022 inductees, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark represents the board on this committee, and we had a representative group of teacher, patron, board member, myself, and we had nominations this year to consider, and I'm presenting to you three former educators with the Fayette County School Corporation: Grace Turner Clifford, Laura Davis, and James Keith Junkins. We are planning to have the induction program on Thursday, October 20th, 6 p.m. at the Whitewater Career Center. And I want to do a little bit of a shout out to the Career Center. We're hosting it there. Normally the kids would be preparing it, but Miss Davis is going to be inducting her, father, the family here, so she and her husband. So we didn't want to put that stress on her of fixing the meal and then having to do the induction speech and everything else. So we gave her a pass on that for that night. But it's going to be a great evening, and I look forward to hearing about three dedicated educators who gave so many years to our kids. So I will present those to you for approval and then invite you to the induction program. Just let Cindy know with the RSVP on that. Thank you, Cynthia, or you provided those? Not yet, okay, they're coming, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the Hall of Fame 2022 inductees.
I give that motion.
Thank you, Jeremy. Second. Thanks, Dennis. Any discussion? Mark, you always enjoy sitting on that committee. You get to
Yes,
see-
and it was an easy decision this year. Took
Oh, good.
very little time, and everybody was happy. There were parents on that committee as well, so, yeah, we're very happy with the three nominees.
Great. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Request for additional school resource office hours, Mr. Collins.
Thank you. As we continue to look at ways to provide more support in our schools, one of the areas where we feel we need more coverage is out in the two rural school areas. And in talking with Joey and Zach with the Sheriff's Department, the response time there is just, it's tougher because they're not located in the city. And our SROs are based in our middle school and high school, our two biggest buildings. So while we still provide some support from that SRO position at the middle school, we would like to add a 4-hour position to start. And we believe we can find someone who has the training and background in school resource officer training and experience. So we'd like to post that position and see how it goes, and then look to possibly increase hours as we can budget more, and we're going to continue to pursue grants and other opportunities. But I'm presenting that to you to approve that additional half-time 4-hour position to start. And we will post it tomorrow if approved.
Okay. All right, I'd like to seek a motion to request the additional school resource officer hours.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, school board policy, second reading and approval of policy 3.25.1, teacher appreciation grant. Mr. Collins.
This is a yearly event, and this is the second reading of this policy. I read through it the first time last month, and what I'm seeking tonight is, after the second reading, is your approval of this policy. This is funding that's tied to our student enrollment, and there's a pot of money in the state, and then they divide it up based on our count, student count, and then this money is used to provide an extra stipend to our effective and highly effective certified staff. So the requirements for that are that the certified staff member must have been highly effective or effective in the previous year, and their primary responsibility is instruction of students, and they must be employed on December 1st of this year to receive it, so they must still be currently employed. There are some other provisions in that with differentiating that by 25%, which we have to do with this pot of money. But again, we will be bringing to you more than likely asking you to make up the difference. So we provide all effective and highly effective certified staff the same amount. That's unique, I think, to Fayette County, but I think it's very important. So the other piece of that is that once we receive the funding from the Department of Education, that we are to distribute it to our staff within 20 business days. So that's the policy that we follow, and just asking you permission to approve it once again, and then tomorrow I will submit this to the state. In cabinet today, we were talking about, we get a mailer from the DOE every week. And just if our legislators could sit down and look at all the requirements that we have to submit, all the paperwork and all the reports that we have to do, and I think Randy pointed that out, just look at all this. I mean, I was going through all of them today, and we were making sure we were on target with everything. It's unbelievable the amount of bureaucracy that's been created by our legislature in the last decade. It's probably doubled, hasn't it, Randy, at least, or tripled. So, but this is another one of those pieces, and I'll submit that tomorrow once approved. But
I'd like, some school corporations invite their legislator in to be an administrator for a day. Probably need to be more than a day, but it would be interesting to pull together some of these things if we wanted to invite Senator Lysing or Senator Rutz to do something like that, for them to have a hands-on view. You know, we had Senator Lysing come and speak directly to teachers, and that was eye-opening to her. So I just wonder if that would ever be something that the board or admin would be interested. I mean, we had brief talk at our public work session. Darryl brought up just how our hands are so tied with getting bus drivers, and that's a legislative issue. I just wonder if that would be, yeah.
I would think it would be worth something to do, because when you create the paperwork, you don't realize how it gets layered and layered and layered, because it comes from different committees, different sources. You just vote on it and and you don't realize the cumulative effect of all they have to do. And isn't this the stipend that they get right before Christmas?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And I just think the public needs to know that, how much our existence is based on the state and funding and the hoops everybody has to jump through, that it's not us creating those obstacles. So, okay. I'd like to seek a motion to approve school board policy, the second reading and approval of the 3.25.1 teacher appreciation grant.
I give that motion.
Thank you, Jeremy. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna start some discussion items now, and we're gonna begin with the public hearing on the 2023 budget, and that'll be Mr. Harris.
Say, hopefully, now that I've been here, this is the second real budget that I've went through. Hopefully the slides and some of the numbers look familiar, but some of this just, every year, it's easy to get a little complacent, but just as a reminder, the numbers that I'm going to go through and show you and all of that, these are higher than they will be once it's approved. The end of this whole process is what's called 1782 notice, which is when the state, usually in December, finally reviews our budget and says, okay, we're gonna cut this, and here's where you're going to be. So the job, me going through the budget really is to put all of the revenues higher than I expect that they will be. In some cases, you'll see significantly higher. Put the revenues lower than we expected they will be, so they're gonna go, oh no, you were wrong, you're gonna get more money here, and oh no, you were wrong, you were too high, so we're gonna bring it down. So ultimately, by December is when the whole process is done. But this is simply the hearing to present all of this information to you as the board and to the public that joins in. And any questions, then we'll be back at the October meeting seeking approval of the numbers and those kind of things. So, and it also always amazes me that we go through all of these steps. And, you know, when we're all said and done tonight, you're gonna see a proposal of a budget of $43 million. And I think the counties and the cities see the same thing. Very few people show up and express their concerns. And anyway, important as we go through here. The first one, the bus replacement plan. And it's a little small, but this going back into what you talked about is now we show 5 years out on what we're going to be doing. We typically are replacing about 5 buses a year. I think one thing, and Daryl and I've talked briefly about it, but when we go out to 2024, we may be looking at, do we really need to replace that many buses on out there if we're cutting down our bus routes and we're maintaining the buses and doing all of those kind of things. So the bus replacement plan for next year, though, does cover what you approved us to go ahead and start looking at the purchasing, and then we're another year out. If you have any questions here as we go through, you are more than welcome to toss those in. Capital projects plan. This is another one that really about 3 years ago, I believe, the format and all of those kind of things changed. Used to, you had to have specifically a capital projects plan for every single building, what you wanted to do, all of those kind of things. Where now it's looking at the whole school district and generally speaking, what are capital items that you anticipate purchasing over the next 3 years. Capital project is defined as anything $10,000 or more. So you're going to see almost everything on our capital projects plan, with the exception of you'll see mowers and tractors up there kind of at the top of this form. We're looking, some of our mowers are getting a little worn and a little beat up. We're looking to purchase a couple new mowers next year that are in the range of about $15,000. So we will be purchasing those out of capital projects, but the rest of it really ties back into what Gibraltar's finding with us between bond money and existing operations fund. It's what are things that we're going to be doing, taking care of our buildings, whether it's parking lots, plumbing, electrical, HVAC. I thought we had HVAC taken care of, and the desks were going to solve. We still have lots and lots of, as you've seen during the open board meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, lots of things there. This is just the items we're going to do, taking care and maintaining our existing buildings. The question came up to me on one of them had acquisition of property, construction, and those kind of things. Like, hold it, we're not planning on building brand new building. You know, we're just talking about all this stuff. Well, that all falls into the same category. So if we're taking care of carpeting, tile, plumbing, electrical, that's really still considered part of the construction and acquisition. It's just a big pot of money there to take care of that. A reminder, here are the 4 funds that we have. There's actually other funds you could have and some school districts have, but we have the education fund. This is fully funded by the state tax dollars. It comes in from sales tax, income tax, gambling tax, those things from the state. It's based on our average daily membership. We talked about earlier, Friday is a big day that we find out what is our real enrollment when we send to the state. That's the basis of the majority of the funding in the education fund. Operations fund, this is all the stuff that doesn't happen in the educational classroom. So education fund takes care of most of the salaries in the school district. It takes care of teachers, instructional assistants, principals, building secretaries. Operation funds take care of all of the other employees, whether it's central office staff, bus drivers, maintenance personnel, custodians. All of those are paid for out of operations fund, as well as the operations fund takes care of that, the chillers down at such and such building. Where do we have the money? Take care of that. So that's really takes care of the capital operations of the district. Debt service fund, I think of this as the school corporation mortgage. It's borrowing money long-term most of the time. We'll talk about an exception tonight, but generally it's more long-term. When I say long-term, it could be 3 years, 5 years. In the case of the middle school, it's 300 years. No, I tease on that, but we keep joking about that. But it's going on. It'll be 25 years before it is actually fully paid off when it started back in 2000, 2001. It's been kind of refinanced a couple of times, and there have been some things that have taken place, but that's now the state limits you to 20 years. But debt service takes care of those kind of things. And then we have the rainy day fund, and the rainy day funds is kind of our savings account that we can put money there that can be used for emergencies as they come up, and we're prepared for those types of things. Any questions so far? Mr. Duncan set this bar so high, I don't want to talk too slow, but don't want to drag it out forever. Here's the district enrollment. You can see we continue a downward slide. It's pretty obvious there. And whenever I even made the enrollment figure for 22-23 at 3,025, right now we don't think it's going to be quite that. We think it's going to be lower than that. When we talk about the money coming from the state into the educational fund, the per pupil base funding for this year is $7,193. So that means at the bare minimum, every child we have, we receive that amount of money for. And then there's other things. We get special ed money, we get career center money, we get an honors grant. So it adds to that, so we actually get more per student than that amount of money, but that applies to every student regardless of whether they're in kindergarten, whether they're a senior, regardless of whether they have high needs, that means we have a lot of services provided to that kid, or it's just a typical kid going through and, in the 3rd grade or the 7th grade or whatever it may be.
Randy, is that a larger amount than we've gotten in the past? Is that 71?
Yeah, 7193. It has, over the last 4 years probably,
Yeah, that's 2 bienniums,
it's about the last 2 bienniums. It has went up. And when we talk about it going up, we're talking about, I think the number for Fayette County schools has went up from last year to this year, the per pupil, about 2%.
Okay, because I remember looking at these kinds of things and saying it was like about $6,500, something on that order. So that was good to see more money, but everything costs more now too. So.
Right. Well, it wasn't all that long ago. I remember whenever the board would ask me, I'd say that's about $5,500 a kid. Then I changed to $6,000 a kid. So now I would use a ballpark figure of about $7,000 per student. But again, and we hear this from our employees, that is, hold it. And my understanding is, I've been focused on the school, so I don't know what's going on out there in the world today. But I think somewhere said now the latest inflation rate is 8.3%. So at the same time, the inflation rate is 8.3%. Our dollars from the state of Indiana are about 2%. Is that going to change with the next biennium? Who knows? But that's the numbers that we have for 2023 budget to go off of.
And we have to use that. I mean,
Yes.
This
Yes.
is our fixed income.
Yep, exactly. Here's the budget estimates. Rainy day fund will to transfer $300,000 from from education fund into there. The debt service fund, of all of the funds, and you'll see a little bit more of this later on, this is where I really hedge the bets. This is definitely higher than it will be once we're approved by the DLGF. But we want to be from both bond counsel as well as our financial, as well as others that I talk to, you want to make sure that's high, and that will definitely be cut. Education fund, this one is also higher. Again, they're going to cut that probably a couple of $1 million. We're still in very good condition, very good shape with it. Operations fund, that also will be cut, and this is the fund out of all of them. I'll talk a little bit about the tax caps and those kind of things. This is the fund that gets hit the most. The operations fund, even though it's set there at $12 million, it will probably be cut somewhere between to $9.5 to $10 million. So percentage-wise, you're looking at about, what's that? 10% of it? No, $2 million, not that much, is going to be cut out of the operations fund once we figure out what's the tax cap, what's the assessed valuation, all of those things that factor into that number. Education fund, I already talked about. Here's all of the stuff that's taken out of the education fund. That's directly into the buildings, into the classrooms. Some more things. Here's a little bit of a breakdown of that education fund. The basic grant, this is the money directly from the state, like I said, made up of all of those various tax dollars, about $21.5 million. You can see in the pie chart there, the big bulk of it is out of that basic grant. Then we receive a little bit on honors grant, the career and tech ed, and the special ed grant. So all of those add together to come to that figure of about $24 million. Property tax caps. Holy cow. And part of this is funneled both ways. You can see already Fayette County is one of the hardest hit communities in the state as far as caps and percentages of what already has hit us. You can see though that between 2021, where we were at about 1.7 million on tax caps, then it increased to about 1.8 a year ago, and it skyrocketed to 2023 of about 2.4 million. And you can see that again on the bar graph. You can see the strong upward curve of that. And part of that also comes back because of our net assessed valuation significantly increased from last year to this year. The bar graph I use doesn't show quite as much, but you can see our net assessed valuation went from $740 million up to $830 million. So a gain of net assessed valuation of about $100 million in the last year. So that's where all of this stuff, what's good on one side is bad on another, and it averages out to, this is where we are.
So when Pete, just to interject there, so when people say, my property taxes went up, they did, but our tax rate isn't the issue for that, it's because your assessed valuation. Mm-hmm. We've had so many properties in Fayette County under assessed over the years, and that has hurt us. And so now with the number of real estate transactions, Lori can attest, prices have driven that up so much that I think we're catching up in a lot of areas. There may still be some overpriced in these sales too that are gonna probably drop, but I think we're seeing that correction, which is huge. $100 million increase in Fayette County is significant. You look at the history of that.
Yeah, really, I mean, just the real simple that people go, I don't really understand the tax caps on that, but not necessarily that these are real numbers of houses, they'll go low to make it more understandable, hopefully. But if you had a house that was assessed at $90,000 with a 1% tax cap, that means the most you could be taxed on your property tax would be $900, 1% of 90,000. Let's say your assessed valuation climbed to $100,000, then your property tax could climb by $100 to go up to $1,000. So even though we talk about it being capped, it really is how much your property's worth. So that's just a real simple one, and people don't always understand that. Go, hold it, I still live in the same house, I haven't done a whole lot. Well, the property values in the whole county have went up, so every little piece and parcel of that generally goes up with it also. Debt service fund, we have, and we'll talk about it a little more later, but the debt service fund, the middle school bond, $1,068,000, that's a pretty solid number. I'm going to skip the next one. Excuse me, the common school construction loan of $595,000, that's a pretty solid number also. The unreimbursed textbooks, we can collect tax dollars to pay for the textbooks that we don't get reimbursed for from the state. That's what we charged, that's what we had from last year, that's a real number. The anticipated debt service, that's where I've thrown in a number now to be on the high side, and we'll talk about that more when we do the hearing for the general obligation bond. But that 1.5 million will definitely decrease once both the board decides what we're going to do, as well as what the Department of Labor government funds, the LGF.
Local government finance.
Yeah.
Local government finance.
Local government finance. So that's where the biggest extra is there. This shows the debt service fund based on what's being proposed. If you really look at it though, it looks like, holy cow, why is it going up so much in 2023? If you look at that last bar that is significantly higher, when we're all said and done, what we've talked about keeping the taxes flat based on the 2021, it will drop down that far, at least, as we look at 2023. So this again, knowing the process, you propose high, and then they're going to cut us. I'm just going to go through these real quick. This is one probably I used a whole lot more 5 or 6 years ago. We've kind of got used to it now. To run everything in the school district, we traditionally have transferred 15% of the money. That's the maximum that we can transfer from educational into operations. So it's taking state tax dollars and helping to supplement the operations to maintain our schools. Also, that's to make up somewhat for the tax caps.
Is that mandated by the state that we have to give 15%? Or
No.
is it recommended?
The state says you cannot do more than 15%. If you do above that, you basically get deemed by the state. You could, but they're going to say, why are you doing more than 15%? We're giving you this money for operation.
Right.
We're giving it for the classroom. Why are you
Right.
switching it to operations?
Okay.
So 15% is the max. You could do 0.
Okay.
I mean, there's probably some school districts that have referendums and things like that may get away with that. I don't know if any, I'll just call them normal school districts. The large majority of school districts in Indiana are transferring some amount of money, whether it's 9%, 12%. The maximum you could do is 15.
Okay.
Operation fund, again, what makes it up comes from local property taxes and from the money we transfer from the education fund. The advertising amount is going to be $12 million. We're going to be somewhere under 10 when they do it. And we look at the circuit breaker, $2.4 million. Operations fund, we already covered the education fund. This is the operations fund we covered a little bit. So all of the stuff that people are like, why do you have all of that there? Well, we need all of this to run the school district. Rainy day fund, same appropriations process. The rainy day fund's the one that has no self-supporting dollars. It's just simply what we transfer in there from either operations or educational fund. Summary, ESSER funds are still good for the next 2 years. that they have helped significantly in what we have done building-wise, particularly with our HVAC systems. But the ESSER funds has also helped a lot in the supplemental side of things of what educational services and some of the SEL services and all of that we have been able to provide beginning last year and continuing on this year, next year, and then next year's where we'll really start looking at what's successful, what's not, and how are we going to continue to fund programs or not. We continue to look at that debt stabilization. How do we keep that line going across flat? We're going to be looking at projects a lot more here in November, December, January, February, as we get more of the information from Gibraltar. And what can we do with teacher contracts? So we had a preliminary meeting on teacher negotiations last night. So we've started that process. We can't officially start until after September the 15th, but I think we'll probably be meeting with the teachers. We haven't confirmed it, but one day next week we'll probably have our first official bargaining session, and we'll see how that goes. I think both me and I don't know if Scott wants to add to it. I think we had a very positive pre-meeting last night, kind of with the union leadership, and I think they're optimistic, and I think we're optimistic that we'll.
Once we lock a date in, those on that committee, Randy's gonna send a notification. That was good discussion.
So I think that is the last of the budget presentation. And all of this, we won't have the same presentation, but we'll be back for approvals in the October board meeting.
Generally speaking, from the figures as I understand them, and some of them I don't completely understand everything about them, but fiscally, the Fayette County School Corporation is in good shape.
Yes.
Okay. As opposed to some other corporations that have not been so diligent in how they've handled their funds and found themselves in serious issues. So we're stable, we're in good shape, and we are prepared for things that may come up along the line without getting ourselves in trouble.
We are in very good condition now. We're solid, we're stable, but we've also got a lot of needs.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got personnel needs, and how do we pay personnel? How do we continue to bump those up? We talked about already 8% inflation rate, and we've given some pretty hefty raises in the last, I mean, you look at the teacher contract last year was larger than anyone I've ever seen. The raises we gave to classified staff, not very long, a month or two ago. We also gave larger increases than I've ever seen. But we're still, it's very competitive out there, and how are we going to meet all those demands? I think so far we've navigated those waters pretty well, but it's an ongoing.
No, and the funds that we have are going to the right places. They're going to support the teachers and the support staff and stuff like that. And if we don't, then we can't keep them, and we're not competitive in the larger market, and the pool is small. So I think we're spending our money wisely in the sense that we are addressing the most critical needs, which is staffing and the needs of our kids, so.
I would agree.
And when you think about costs too, we don't know for sure what our health insurance premiums will go up, but it's probably gonna be 7 to 9%. So when you factor in, that could be $1,500 more a year for a family plan insurance premium. We don't know yet, but there have been a lot of claims. Prescription costs have gone up tremendously. That's a big hit because I'm on the board, and we're gonna see a big hit. So you factor in everybody who has insurance, we pay a significant portion of that cost, so.
Well,
And that's just another huge, Randy was running some numbers for it yesterday, just looking at what that could potentially be. So people don't always think about all those costs that go with it. Costs are going out. It's like the buses. I bet they're up 30% in the last 5 years. That cost is about 25 to 30%. So I think you're right.
Are there any public comments on the 2023 budget? And of course, board, any other comments you might have? Okay, well, we will look forward to the next meeting to approve that. Next discussion item is the 2023-2025 to 2025 capital projects plan.
We've really covered
That was
yeah.
all
Yeah.
part
It's
of
all
it.
covered, so we're really down to
Okay,
the public
and the bus
hearing on
replacement plan. So
Right.
now we're getting ready for the public hearing on the general obligation bond. So I want to welcome everybody. We are about to have our hearing. We're going to hear a presentation from Mr. Harris about how the proposed project meets the needs as described by the Director of Operations. He'll also describe how the proposed project will be financed, as well as information about the effect on the typical property taxpayer. So we're ready now to open the hearing. If you'd like to speak, you'll need to sign in on a sheet that Cindy has. As I mentioned, we'll ask, I didn't mention this. We will ask you to state your name and address, limit your comments to the proposed project and financing, keep any comments to under 3 minutes, and avoid being repetitive if possible. Is there anybody that knows that they want to speak on the bond hearing? Okay. Okay, so thank you everybody who's participating. We appreciate your time and interest in the projects and the future of our community. Please note this is just a first step in the legal process. The board will continue to work with administration and its professionals to look for efficiencies to conserve tax dollars while meeting our educational needs. So Mr. Harris, can you summarize the project resolution for us?
Okay, well, the start of it here, and I'll just kind of give a little upfront, and I know Elizabeth, we are both running off a script provided by legal counsel, so we're going to do a whole lot more reading than we typically do to make sure we cover everything here. But look at this, we did have legal notice that was required by law. Then pursuant to Indiana Code 20-26-7-37, before a school corporation may spend more than $1 million to build, repair, or alter a school building that will be financed by a lease or bonds, it must hold a public hearing at which explanations of the potential value of the project to the school corporation and community are given. This public hearing and the adoption of resolutions is in the very beginning of the legal process, and these resolutions will establish the financial terms for the proposed project.
Okay, yeah, and I kind of read the wrong page. This is all new to me, so you'll just all have to be patient with this process. So Randy shared that, and now we're going to hear about the process of determining and communicating the project to the community and the need for the project.
And this, really the next part of it is, I'm going to kind of give a whole presentation here on combining all of this and where we are. We'll come back to Leslie and then we'll have some resolutions here. I want to thank Gibraltar, Chris, who sounds like had some fun getting around the I-465 parking lot.
Everyone left at the exact same time. 9 spots. We got it. We're good.
Well, you made it.
You know, and from the board, I think you know how much we've worked with Gibraltar and with Ice Miller and with Baker Tilly. Those three really main components, but and all of that went in, and Chris has done a tremendous job to really put this presentation together. So hopefully I do the presentation justice. We'll go through welcome. We'll go through the multiple steps here of it. The first, looking at the project, the preliminary assessment, progress updates, those kind of things. We have found that we have some major issues that need to be addressed, mainly in the areas of HVAC, which is the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems in our buildings. We have some air handling equipment within our buildings that need to be addressed, and we have some piping, plumbing issues that need to be addressed. And we've found significant need to those that are definitely more than the $1 million mark, and we believe that it's in the best interest of the school district to look at using our resources to match those needs with the finances available. Number one goal is to improve the Fayette County facilities and learning environment. looking to provide comfort and upgrade the facilities for continued future use. At our work session, we talked about these, and I think we kind of reached consensus of where we wanted to put the first round of dollars. And so what we're looking at, projects to address through this specific general obligation bond, are to replace the high school hot water recirculating pumps and water softeners, replace up to 3 air handling units at Everton. They currently are 42 years old. They're original to the building. We're looking to replace from 1 to 3 boilers, depending on the costs that come in, at Eastview. And then we look at replacing the oldest chiller and the chilled water pumps at the high school. So these are the things that will be contingent upon the budget. Once we determine how many dollars we have, eventually then we will go out to bid for these, and we know these are probably going to be more than the money that we have from the bond issue. So at that time, we would decide how many are we going to cover by the bond issue, and then do we want to do the rest of them out of operating funds, or do we delay them for another project on down the line? Overview of it, those 4 projects, the total bond issue budget is $1,025,000. Now I'm going to throw in a whole bunch of those, the small print that you can't read. Listen to me here for the next couple of minutes, because now it's the small print that you can't read. And that is, this is based on the projections by Baker and Tilly, based it on that we're going to be able to borrow money at a 5% interest rate. So if we send the bonds out and we borrowed at 5%, looking to keep our tax rate flat, then we would be able to borrow about $1,025,000. If we go out to bond and we come in at 4%, then we're going to be able to bump that dollar figure up. Whether it goes up to $1,040,000, $1,050,000, it could go higher than what that amount is. So that is what we right now anticipate over the next month as the process goes on. That would probably be the least amount of money we would receive. It could go higher. He shared with me that today they had a bond issue somewhere, a $1.5 million bond, and it came in at 3.16%. Don't get your sights, don't get excited. Scott and I have already talked about it, and I've only heard it through him, so I do trust my source, but I've heard that the stock market went down, the bond, or the federal government interest rates are going up, so they're going to put probably another kibosh on the borrowing between banks. So with all of that, that's where we figure it's probably going to be in the 4 to 5% range. They really don't expect that it's going to stay at the 3.16% for the next couple of months. So again, it'd be nice to just come and say, hey, here's exactly what it's going to be, and we're done, and you're finished. This is the hearing to talk about all the considerations that we're going to go through, and they're going to change with the economy over the next month or two.
When we refinanced the middle school, if you recall, we actually got more because the rate came in less, so we were able to, it was about 100,000, I believe.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did well on that one.
When we refinanced for the last time in the middle school.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
So that was a really great bond sale
That
there.
saved us a bundle of
Several $100,000, so.
The current situation doesn't say that's going to happen. The word they used today on the stock market was it cratered today.
Almost 1,500 points.
So anyway, we're, and I think if I remember right from our public work session, we were looking at purchasing the bonds somewhere around the 1st of November, so about a month and a half from now, by the time we go through the whole process. So generally speaking though, looking at where we are in this, we're still in the process of the facilities assessment study. We're having the project hearing today. Then we will start between October and January, develop bid documents for these projects. Probably somewhere in January, the board will be asked to approve the actual projects once we have pricing for 2023. Then we'll receive the bids in February. We'll award them immediately after that, and we'll look at starting these projects somewhere in the summer of 2023. So that's kind of our general timeline that we're looking at for this. And as we talked to Gibraltar and some things, we talked about, hold it, didn't we talk about we might have the bigger pot of money available in 2023? And don't we look at big? This is just the 4 projects that we discussed there. We're keeping the scope very limited, but very needed for the general obligation bond.
So we've set priorities, this is what we have, where we have to spend our money first. And then, doesn't mean that we're not going to fund some other projects, but these are on the critical list that
Right.
we need to take care of.
These are kind of where we view the big projects, the ones that kind of give us the biggest bang for the buck today. And we'll look for other things later. The financial impact of the project. Now we get into the Baker Tilly and some of these the things. And I'm going to talk a couple of different things of just the scheduling of debt, what falls off. I'll go on to the chart here. If we did nothing, it shows kind of where we would be, and it gradually drops off. That's where we want to keep that level. Here's kind of all the calculations they do to look at what our bonding capacity is. They look at the net assessed valuation in 2022. What's the net assessed valuation going to go up to? By law, what could we do? We could go a maximum of, looking at $5.5 million. We're keeping it well below that, just looking at keeping that rate flat. Here's where the project, and we've kind of talked about where we are at the moment. If you look at it right now, the estimated maximum tax rate is 0.123. I'm not looking at my chart there, I'm trying to read it with my glasses. But where we really believe that ultimately where it's going to be is this debt is estimated to add 0.079 to the tax rate to maintain that level that we want to be at. Again, now you can see where we were in 21. It dropped a little bit in 22. We're taking it back to 2021 here in the green area. The green is where we are proposing. The top of the lines where it's going to drop back down to that, and then it shows where things drop off on later in 24, 5, 6 off. That's where we'll be looking at other projects to maintain and keep that flat as we go across there. Schedule there, looking at the existing debt service payments, those kind of things. Here's where we're at, here's what it does. That's the number showing as it drops off. Finally, in 2026, the big 800-pound gorilla of the middle school finally drops off.
For 25 years.
Yeah. So all of this, like I said, was created by Baker and Tilly as we go through there. So, any questions from the board about where we are? And I'm even going to look to, I know, since they did drive all the way out here, I don't know if there's, Chris, if you guys have anything else to add, I just appreciate all you've done on it, so.
No, it covers everything. I think having that work session to work through some of those items, looking towards the future and also what needs to happen now, I think is very important. And October, we look forward to talking about learning environments and bringing input from staff to the board.
This has been a fascinating journey for us as a board, and to really have you all doing such a stellar job at looking at all our buildings and our needs. I think it's important. I don't know how much the public has been following what we've been doing and what you all have been doing, but I know that we are super appreciative of the detailed look that you have given all of our buildings, and also helping us to understand, just because something is old, I mean, yeah, it'd be great if we had just buku bucks to take care of it, but our facilities folks are just keeping things running smoothly, and we don't have to, we can't do everything we want to do. So we do appreciate all the work you're doing and our facilities team for being able to look at what's the top priority. So I think we just have to do another plug for the fine work that Gibraltar has done.
High participation from staff, so
Yes.
it is going to be great information that we're looking forward to bringing to you.
Yeah, that's another piece too, that the staff is involved. So yes, now is the time that the public can make any comments that they wish to make or questions. And again, if you did want to, you would have to sign in and fill out a form. Okay, so at this point, I think I am ready to make a motion, is that?
Turn it back to me
Oh,
to read what the
I'm turning it
resolution
back
is, and
to
so
Randy
we'll,
to tell us what
we'll
the
kind of
motion
play
is.
ping pong now, back and forth here. The first, you have 3 resolutions in front of you that need to be voted on tonight. The first resolution, and I'm gonna, it's not even part of my script, but the resolution shows that we are proposing to borrow up to $3.4 million. Again, put it real high, and then it's gonna come back to whatever that reality is. So the project resolution is required when the school is planning to spend more than $1 million per building. It contains the estimated hard and soft construction cost and the cost of issuance, and establishes the total project cost. It also contains the estimated tax impact. So that is the first resolution that requires board action.
I'm looking for a motion and a second to adopt the project resolution. Is there someone willing to make the motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion?
Yeah, we discussed this a little bit. The 3.5 million, is that what you're seeking to borrow?
No.
Or is that,
That sets the maximum that we could borrow. That would have been, we talked about whether we wanted to borrow money out for 2 or 3 years.
right?
And this really comes back to, I got the consensus from the board, kind of that, hey, let's just do a 1 year,
Yes.
keep things flat.
Yep.
It gives us more time then to think about what we want to do in the future.
Okay, I
So
just wanna-
yeah, the 3.4 is the high. What we're really going to be looking at is that 1,025,000 type of area.
Randy, the one that had it laid out with the 1 year.
I just wanted to make sure that we were still on track to do the 1 year loan per
Yes.
se. And that we can get it paid off, meanwhile, it allows us all to continue like we saw.
I was
about.
gonna share that we'll be doing this whole process again when we look at that bigger pot of money, when we have all the information from the study and all the feedback from staff. So that was the direction the board gave us at the public hearing,
Right.
is let's just do a one-time, pay it off in a year. So that's what we're doing with this 1 million
Okay.
and change.
But I appreciate you raising that
Yeah.
question, because I don't want the public to be
Right.
confused.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do this whole process again, probably somewhere March to June. I'll leave a broad range there, but we'll be back. By then, you're gonna have a lot more information and a lot bigger projects.
So those 4 pull projects, can you go back right now where it had it listed? This is going to, there,
Yeah,
this is what we're looking at for just this fund.
yes.
And we pay it off in the 1 year time period,
Right.
1 year, 2 months.
Right.
And if it's a little bit higher, it can come out of the operations fund, right?
Well, if we have more projects to do, or yes, we'll take it out of operations.
Depending on where, I mean, if that all of a sudden comes in at $5 million, the answer is no.
We'll be covered.
But if it comes in where we think the budget is, yeah, we've got some other, we could be doing that out of the operations fund.
Good question.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by raising a hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, now, Mr. Harris, can you please summarize the preliminary bond
Okay,
resolution?
the preliminary bond resolution is the first step in issuing these general obligation bonds. It contains expected maximum financial terms of the bonds, and then we will bring back the final bond resolution back to the board next month for final approval. So that number you're going to see is a lot more realistic with what we really presented tonight.
Will we have an idea of the interest rate?
Well, we will have a better idea because we're a month down the line.
Yeah.
But you still have to prove it to go
Before we
forward
go
before
get
we
those.
actually go out to bid with it. So we won't know a final number until November the 1st, that we, we'll talk about at the November board meeting or something. But, so we'll know a little more, because it's like, if I said what's gonna be the interest rate 3 years from now, we can make a guess, but until we get a whole lot closer. So a month closer will give us better numbers at the next board meeting, but they still won't be exact numbers until we actually send it out for bid.
Okay, so now I'd like to have a motion and a second to adopt the preliminary bond resolution. Who'd like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Chris, and the second. Thank you, Dennis. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Harris, could you please summarize the reimbursement resolution?
Okay, the next and the final resolution tonight is a reimbursement resolution relating to the financing of the construction project. This resolution permits the school corporation to reimburse itself from bond proceeds for any cash which it might spend on the project prior to the closing on the bonds. It is required by federal tax law in order to preserve the school corporation's ability to reimburse itself.
Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the reimbursement resolution.
I'll give that motion.
Thank you, Jeremy, in a second. Thank you, Dennis. And again, any discussion? And all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now I can adjourn the project hearing, and we will go back to the regular board meeting. Thank you, Randy, for that. Now is the time for public comments where persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, and/or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. I believe we have none. Is that accurate? Okay. Now we move on to superintendent discussion group reports. Principal, director reports. Anybody have anything they want to share?
I just got one thing. It's kind of fun. This Saturday, we have the class of 1962 coming in for their 60th reunion, and we are going to take them around on the Spartan Express and show them a few things. And they're pretty excited, and we're going to meet down at the middle school, and they want to go see it because a lot of them are out of town, so it should be fun.
Oh, thank you, Daryl. That's great.
That's cool.
That's great. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
Yeah, one thing.
Yeah.
A couple new initiatives recently, Student of the Month at the high school, Teacher of the Month at the high school, and then a student-led safety committee.
Cool.
So we had a few
Really cool.
kids step up, and we had our first meeting last Thursday, and the discussion on that was phenomenal. So
Wow.
it was really good, so.
Maybe at some point
a lot
you'll
of
come
kid
back
and
with those
teacher
kids
input.
and they can share how they enjoyed that. Wow. Anything else? Okay, Director of
Steve has.
Oh.
I'm super excited for Mr. Leggett. He's a man
Aw.
of good character. Excited to have kids in his building, and fortunately I have a wife that'll be there to work with them. And we go way back. We took our master's classes together as administrators, so. there's a
Oh,
lot of
that's
history
cool.
there. So very excited for him and for CHS.
Thanks, Steve. All right, Director of Operations, anything else tonight?
No, the one thing I do want to apologize, you don't see a fund report, the timing of where we got the bank statements, and Tina is out of town, but I will get that information to you.
Thank you, Randy. Assistant Superintendent report.
No pass.
Superintendent report.
I just wanted to commend the high school, and they're resilient, and I just want to say thank you to our high school staff and students. And I was over there for quite a while today, and it's really neat some of the stuff they're doing out there. And you see these big kids out there playing cornhole and throwing the ball around, and kids need recess, that extra energy, it's just neat to see. And I went to commend one group where I was talking with Andrea, our athletic director, and some girls were hitting the volleyball around, and another student who was very backward, a male student, they invited him in and said, come on and play, and he was so happy to be included. There's so much more than just teaching math and science, and, teaching kids kindness and respect. So it was really neat to see. I've enjoyed being over there, and I just want to say that. It's been overall, it's been a really good start to the year. I was talking to someone today, and they said it's been a great start from what they hear. We have bumps in the road that we don't anticipate, but we have resilient people who work hard.
Thank you. For the good of the cause,
I'd like to speak about our football team and this community support. And I've been a Spartan football fan for almost 40 years, and I haven't seen anything quite like this in a very long time. Ryan, this is Ryan's dream job, and when you're doing what you're supposed to do, you typically do a really good job at it. The kids are excited, the fans are excited. Parking, I mean, just finding a place to park was difficult the other night. And just the high school kids, all of the various groups that are getting together, and the adults in the community that are coming out and filling Spartan Field. That's a paid political announcement. You're supposed to be there Friday night for the homecoming game against Rushville. But it's just a renewed energy. I think some of it's because it's been we haven't played real well for a while, and also the whole COVID thing where we couldn't have people. And now we've got a really good team. The kids are excited. The fans are excited. The community is excited. And that wave is just really fantastic to see. So come out on Friday night and fill the bleachers and make a lot of noise. And have a good time, because it's fun. It's really fun to watch them.
Yeah, I go again here, I don't want to play one. You all got your money's worth in this meeting tonight, so congratulations. Help me out on high school, folks. Tomorrow night is the homecoming Olympics. Can somebody share, just if anyone wants to come out and check it out?
It's 7 o'clock tomorrow. Word on the street, the teachers have a dominant team this year, so.
Football field?
On the football field, and it's Spirit Week, tomorrow's pajama day. I got my pajamas ready for tomorrow, so. Dance on Saturday, 6:30 to 9 or 9:30.
6:30 to 9:30.
So.
No union suits with that drop bottom. That's all I'm gonna say on PJ Day.
Did I see that the dance is going to be in the courtyard if weather permits?
Weather permitting. It
Oh,
was last year too.
That's great.
And board members get in free to the dance.
Thanks.
They're all excited.
And you guys did something today that was different, the Scrabble
Scrabble
thing?
day today. So
I saw some of the pictures. Can you explain what that?
Sure, the students wore random letters,
Yeah.
and then there was like a theme of the period, so it has to be something, food related, or something school football spirit related, or whatever, and then they tried to rearrange
So they're
themselves
scrambling in the classroom trying
to
to
take pictures and send them
Okay.
so that we could post them up.
Okay.
The kids had fun with it,
Yeah.
the teachers did too.
Yeah.
And Kim, you're doing a fantastic job on the website and on the Facebook page with showing the students and stuff that they're doing. And it's a little bit of everything, which is really nice. Kids are getting across the broad spectrum, so you're just doing a fantastic job with handling that and getting it out. And anybody that hasn't got on the Fayette County website lately needs to go, because there's an awful lot there, not only about the high school, but about every school in the district. So it's really upgraded and great for getting school spirit back. So.
Anybody else?
Got the elementary cross-country,
Yeah.
that's always fun. October the 1st up at Roberts Park.
Yeah, we saw pictures of the little
Preschoolers
running. And they're all looking at each other like, I'm not letting them.
I am gonna go race them next week. I think I can hang with them for that run. So, no cameras allowed.
I just want to mention my excitement at being able to see the entire playground at Everton School. The building is gone.
It's gone.
It's gone, and it's really wonderful. I haven't been in to get back into the library, but I'm guessing the students and
Oh, we're using it every day.
yeah, that's just wonderful. So we're real happy to see that was that it ended well.
And we tentatively have our next board meeting planned to be out there.
Oh, cool.
We're hoping the bookshelves and things. So we were wanting it all to be done, but that's a tentative plan for next month.
Oh, wow.
I have it at the Everton Library.
That would be great.
There'll be plenty of parking there, space there. Right.
Okay, and one last thing, I want to commend the middle school for doing Challenge Day. Challenge Days, I mean, there were 3 of them. That was fabulous. For those of us that got to volunteer, I hope that whenever you do it again, that we, those of us who have been can really encourage other volunteers. Did you have any trouble getting volunteers?
We had a great turnout, really appreciated all the board members.
Yeah.
Mr. Collins was there as well, Sarah was there, just had great support. A lot of good feedback from those facilitators and from the volunteers as well. And now we have a group that has formed, and we're going to take the ball that we got that day and just kind of keep running with it. We've got some groups that are now forming from that. Just want to keep that spirit.
And I think we have to thank Reed for helping to sponsoring that this time.
Thank Reed and especially for coordinating a lot of that. So,
Great.
And everybody in this board just did a great job putting that whole thing together. It's wonderful.
Good.
It was a significant financial, I think it was around $20,000
$20,000.
Yeah.
that they contributed to the whole event with food and everything, so.
Yeah, it was so worthwhile.
Wonderful. Okay, seeing no other comments, my dear friend.
I won't make a motion.
All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand, opposed same sign, meeting adjourned.